This is Grievance Total Gaming here, and we're just going to quickly talk about the Cleric class and have a little discussion on what we're looking forward to about the Cleric. And we have here with us Steelheart, Nightangel,
hey, surprise,
and Memo. And you know what I just realized? I have your guys' names backwards, which is funny.
I am not Nightangel.
I'm Memo today.
I want you. Yes, but we're gonna talk about the Cleric, who Memo is very excited about. I'm gonna just keep calling you Nightangel now.
Very, very excited about this. You know, the description. The battle cleric stands toe-to-toe against their enemy without fear, capable of decent armed combat and spell casting granted through divine favor. I mean, to me that means, you know, you can hold your own with your melee combat skills while healing and doing damage at the same time. That's the cleric that I want to play for sure.
Yeah. And so, first of all, let me just read the lore real quick, just so that we can share the point of view that we all have of this cleric. It says the cleric is a battle-ready priest devoted to spreading the influence of his or her pantheon while adventuring within the wilds of Terminus, armed with weapons and abilities of divine might. The cleric performs benevolent deeds upon these in need and keeps his allies from the clutches of death. In Terminus, where the reach of a pantheon has been met, the cleric goes forth to act as a harbinger of faith. Awesome, right? Like
Awesome.
Girl, I've never wanted to play a healer so much before because it's not
How could you have never wanted to play a healer?
Yeah. Oh, I've always been a healer. EverQuest 1, EverQuest 2. In Vanguard, I was a druid. It's a little, But yeah. But like, how awesome does this sound, right, for a cleric?
This is what I've always thought of clerics. You know, as everybody knows, I started in the original EverQuest, and this was the cleric. This was the Dungeons and Dragons cleric. The plate mail armor, the warhammer in one hand and a shield in the other, or a two-handed mace or hammer, and going forth into battle and healing my allies, and you know, benevolent deeds, buffs. This is a cleric. This is the medieval cleric, so to speak.
Yeah.
The true D&D cleric.
Yeah, hoping it's the straight 3.5 rule set of D&D, the battle cleric. You know, your full plate, like Steel said, with your warhammer and your spell book with you too for the casting.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that real quick. Our first point that we want to talk about, the cleric's armor. As it mentions in the descriptions, or what we know just so far of this cleric, that they can be that plate metal wearing cleric, but they can also be the light armor, almost like cloth wearing cleric, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what are the differences?
Well, it's just like Memo said, you know, you have the cleric that gets up in the battle, you've got your shield, and you've got your mace or your scepter or whatever, and you're out in the thick of it. But then you can also be the kind of cleric that stands back and shields and buffs and heals from a distance. So you've got your variety with that.
Yeah.
And so
seems like you're going to tailor how you play by your armor set. You know, you're going to be at the front with the plate, and like Knight said, you're going to, you know, be a more in the back straight healer with the lighter armor.
Yeah,
makes you more mobile.
Yeah, you're a little more mobile, so you can dodge out of things, but you're just sitting back and you're healing. And I imagine, like in the original EverQuest, remember when you said like hold 2 books up?
Yeah.
You'd be the caster holding the 2 books, or you'd have that mace and the book in your hand,
and a
or whatever.
book.
Yeah,
I always had a book.
That's what I totally picture, right? But like it's a little different though,
exactly.
because you're wearing that light armor, right? Because you're going to be wearing.
Discusses manifesting astral paladins from faith energy. That's interesting.
I picked up on that too. I was like, okay, so it's gonna have some kind of a pet sort of later skill sets, maybe,
or temporary summon something,
right,
or another.
Yeah.
It you know, when we look at this, it's obviously the cleric is more than just a healing entity. It's going to have buffs, and I read something today. I think it was PC Gamer talking about climatization in certain zones that they were. Brad and the crew were thinking about putting that to different zones if it was possible, to where you would have to acclimate to a zone or have to have buffs, and whereas a cleric might not help you in a cold or hot zone, because to me that sounds more like a mage or a wizard type class, as far as like a poisonous gas in a swamp, you may actually need the cleric buff to adventure through this swamp effectively.
Yeah. And so we talked about the armor, so let's hit our second point real quick, just to let people know a little bit about the cleric, of their weapons. What weapons are available to a cleric, or so far from what we know? Memo.
Your mace, your hammer, your flail, two-handed hammer, pretty much blunt-ended weapons.
Yeah.
Anything without an edge.
Yeah, and that seems that those weapons seem like what that battle cleric would be wielding, right? That shield, these blunt weapons, and they're going to be wearing their heavy armor. But then it seemed like if you're wearing that light armor and you're going to be healing, you'll have the two-handed staves, the scepters, or that tome.
Yeah.
You can have your book.
So there's your tome, there's your book and your mace.
There's your book or your stein.
Yeah, yeah, your stein.
Your chalice.
Yeah, exactly. Or whatever has the most wisdom on it, right? Like that's
whatever stat.
Yeah, whatever stat it uses. But
pretty
that's
much a stat stick for your casting.
Yeah.
If you get close enough to use it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
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 You should never get that close as a cloth wearer.
Yeah. And so then we mentioned the astral paladins, and so just a little bit more on this. What could this be? What is this?
Well, they say later on, so it's something that we'll get either as one of those skills that we have to collect, or something as like at the end game, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the little quote in there, the power of these centuries is derived, so it may be some sort of pet that's summoned. I mean, obviously, once the game's kick-started, and for those of you that haven't looked at this, it's Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen on Kickstarter. 31 days left. We're fourth of the way there. So this is looking really good, but every little bit helps. We want to make sure this gets kick-started.
Yeah.
Go fund it.
Exactly. And our fourth point that we're just going to talk about real quick was, it's interesting to think that going back to using the cleric's religion as a source of their different powers and abilities. So we're going to have religion, but it's going to be linked to having abilities, different powers that we can use.
Well, that's been in some of the D&D rule sets, and I know that, in lots of other games as of recent, you've got to choose things like that, but it makes absolutely no impact on the storyline. So the thought of having, that impact, your character's abilities, skills, and even, your character's storyline I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it, but it goes back to the name of the game, Pantheon. So the Pantheons are the gods, right? So
Absolutely.
It makes sense to have that in this game.
Yeah.
So there will be different deities, just like some of the other MMOs. A lot of us have played. You declare what deity that you worship, and if you declare one, I don't know if there'll be a choice not to, and you might derive certain powers or buffs maybe from that.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely think that that's going to be something they're going to be doing here, because that leads into after this, the next class we're going to talk about, that directly leads into them talking about the dark gods. So, you've seen that with two classes so far where they've referred to religion and, how the gods are going to affect the class. So I'd say that's a pretty clear indication.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if it'll be anything like the one in EverQuest 2, where you can declare a god and you can have your little altar or whatever, and you can gain abilities from sacrificing things to these altars, and you can choose
that
what kind of ability.
Fun.
Yeah, you can choose
sacrificing things.
Yeah.
Great.
You gotta like the Dark Knight.
But it may be that just like some of the other games, that you only have a certain amount of for lack of a better word, spells or blessings, or whatever you want to call it, and you got to pick which ones you memorize if they decide to take that route. and those are going to be based on you praying to your God and based on the type of blessings that God bestows upon you as a cleric.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. And so we don't have any art yet for this class, but I mean we just have some maybe concept of maybe what it would be like. You see these plates wearing clerics with a shield and a mace or a hammer.
Speculation.
Yeah, a lot of speculation. It's super early. We're in our first 9 days into the
Right.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that these pictures are not from the Pantheon crew or anything. These are just examples that we pulled to show you what we think that a cleric may look like in Pantheon.
Yeah. And there's the one of Gimli. I imagine that's Gimli right there. I don't know. But yeah. But we're not sure what they're going to look like, but this is what we imagine, right? A plate wearing
Battle cleric.
and we don't even have anything where we could show maybe the cloth wearing or light armor wearing, tome holding, scepter holding cleric, but that's the one I want to be. I like the battle cleric idea, but I love sitting back and just healing, and that's my role, right? Keep everybody alive.
That's right.
Yeah, but then you have the option to go in and kick some ass. So
there you go.
yep, that's
There's
all
the
you
cleric.
need. Yeah.
So Dash is a clothy to the heart.
but I've always been a cleric. EverQuest 2, I was a cleric, and you wear plate armor or whatever, or chain. It was chain, right? Chain in EverQuest 2, but I'm fine with cloth as long as I get to stand back and heal, because we've been missing those from games, right? Healers.
I'm going to play a tank.
I'll
I
be
need
a healer.
heals.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that next. So make sure you watch our video on, was it The Dark Knight?
The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight?
The Dark Knight.